Hi, I'm Senator Adam Ollier, and this is the We Can Do Better podcast. I am really excited. I have a very special guest whose name I'm going to butcher pretty aggressively. So we'll let her correct it. But you will know that we've done a lot with the Ruth Ellis Center. They are an incredible partner. They do incredibly important work, particularly as LGBTQ youth are continue to be in the vanguard of people's crosshairs to mess with, to hurt, to demean, to diminish, to marginalize. And so it's really important that we're able to elevate the voices of the Ruth Ellis Center, of their employees, of their staff, of their people, as we talk about making sure that people feel included and protected in this space. And so Nazarina, Nazarina. I'm just not even gonna, it's Muwaka Nusega.
Wakasege Minaya.
Yeah, so I told you I was not going to do a great job, but we're going to keep working on it until we get there. But Nazarina does development, and do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us about the work that you do over at Ruth Ellis?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Nazarina Wakasege Minaya. I'm the Senior Development Associate over at the Ruth Ellis Center. So development is really about, trying our best to sustain our programs. And how do you do that? You got to fundraise, you got to reach out to the community, engage, the community, chosen families in the hopes that, our cause resonates with them. And thankfully, definitely in the Southeastern Michigan area, we've got a large chosen family that supports us. I also work on the social media for the organization and communication. So from time to time, you might hear me on NPR, you might see something that I said about the center in Pride Source, which is an incredible LGBTQ run publication for our community. And so, at any given time over the course of the day, I'm reaching out to the wonderful people of the world that want to support our incredible LGBTQ young people. And Senator, thank you so much for having us and allowing us to be represented in our beautiful community. It is very much our pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to be able to represent you, and I'm excited about the new center that I see, coming up out of the ground.
Yeah.
I can literally see it out of my parents' backyard. I was literally over there just a couple of days ago, and we were joking about how different it's going to be, because when I was a very little kid, there was an apartment building right behind them that was demolished, and so you could see clear downtown up until, let's say, the last 2 weeks. And so it's just good to see a place that's going to be providing safe space and good programming there. Do you want to just tell folks about what that next extension of Ruth Ellis, because it's a pretty substantial increase in space and programming opportunities?
Very much, yes. So this expands our campus quite a bit. So what we're looking at is a 43 either one bedroom apartments and or studio apartments that's going to support mostly LGBTQ young people. There's going to be a health and wellness center inside. It's going to be run by family medicine doctors at the incredible Henry Ford Health System. It's going to include a beauty bar as well as a food service area. A lot of our young people identified those particular areas as spaces in which they would like to increase their skill set. And so we're all about, being able to learn at home and take care of yourself at home. And there'll also be availability for behavioral health services as well. And yes, it definitely is a huge undertaking, very much a labor of love in the area. We're extremely thankful to the city of Detroit and all of the incredible support that this center has garnered, and we're just really excited about it. And yep, it's currently going up. And if you're ever on our social media, you can catch some really pretty incredible pictures of the site and the incredible work that's going on into it.
If someone wanted to look at your social media, what is it? How do we find you?
Yeah, so we try to keep it really easy. So on Facebook, it's literally facebook.com/Ruth Ellis Center. We just recently recovered our over on Twitter. So we're Ruth Ellis Center on Twitter as well, and Instagram, Ruth Ellis Center. So if you ever, want to catch us on social media, we have that. We also have a podcast. It's called Voices of REC, and that's widely available. But I think it's easiest to access on Spotify.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we want to follow the work the Ruth Ellis Center is, it's pretty much Ruth Ellis Center, insert social media platform.
Yes.
Okay. And for those who don't know or aren't as familiar, could you tell people who Ruth Ellis was and how the Ruth Ellis Center got started?
Absolutely. So Ruth Ellis was born in Springfield, Illinois in 1899, the child of former enslaved persons. She had an incredible, loving, and affirming family. And so she identified as a lesbian as early as age 16. And so if you can imagine, an African-American woman at age 16 being accepted and fully affirmed by her family as someone that identified as loving someone with whom she could closely identify, it's pretty incredible. What makes her iconic, at least in the Michigan area and specifically Detroit, is in the 1930s. She moved to Michigan. She moved to Detroit. She took up an apprenticeship at a printing press and eventually was able to start her own business right out of her home. And she ran it with her partner that she was with, Babe Franklin, for over 30 years. And in that time, she was running her business out of her home. And she also utilized her home as a place of respite for people who were marginalized, and specifically people who were LGBTQ. So, she was supporting, those who had academic aspirations, those who wanted to learn a trade, those who simply needed a space to be and be accepted. And she was inspiring, I think, to a lot of the current elders of the community. And so when a 15-year-old boy back in 1999 was violently rejected by his family upon sharing with them that he was in fact gay, the young person was able to reach out to some elders in the community who realized that, whoa, there's not a lot of services. You would imagine for a child who had found themselves on the streets after being violently rejected for their identity, that there would be some kind of resource to support a young person like that. And unfortunately, back in 1999, there weren't many. And so, that's kind of where, the idea began, and initially, and very much still our bread and butter, transitional housing was a huge deal. And so that's why this permanent supportive housing project over on Claremont is just so incredibly important to us. It was also identified that health and wellness services were needed. It was identified that educational, attainment and supporting our young people was necessary. And so in that vein, and really realizing that it was an incredible legacy that, we were trying to continue. One of the co-founders, Dr. Kofi, who has actually returned to us and is currently our lead behavioral health therapist, asked Ruth, how would you feel about, a center that really sort of embodies the work that you've done, bearing your name, and she accepted. And, this incredible human being lived until she was 101. And just months before her passing, she was able to cut the ribbon on the center, which was in Detroit at the time, but we are now currently housed in Highland Park. And it's really her legacy that we're following and doing our best to continue in ensuring that LGBTQ young people are living in a world where they feel dignified and affirmed and loved and seen. And we have Ruth Ellis to thank for a lot of that inspiration.
And so as you talk about kind of this space, can you really explain the need for the temporary housing, for the supported housing? I know that that as we talk about, housing, there is this broader discussion about housing affordability, but particularly for LGBTQ youth, it is this very real and very prescient need as children are, displaced because their families aren't accepting, or because, for a variety of reasons that makes it a much bigger issue for LGBTQ youth, and how, your expansion and the work that you do is really filling that gap.
Yeah. So when you look at the statistics, for instance, for LGBTQ young people in foster care, there's a huge overrepresentation, like 120%,
Mm-hmm.
at any given time in the country. Up to 40% of the homeless population also identifies as LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rejection is still very prevalent in the experiences of our young people, and even some of the elders in the community. And so, as we know, housing is it's a basic need if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to survive, and not only survive, but if you're going to thrive, you need a place you can call home. You need a place that you can lay your head. You need a place where you can receive mail. Like, you need a place where you can put your phone down. Like, all of these things are just incredibly essential, if you're going to not just succeed in life, but literally survive. And so, knowing that, and knowing just in a time like this one, it's been incredibly difficult, specifically for LGBTQ youth. Um, when you think about it, the pandemic forced a lot of people into their homes. Now, for many of us, our home is our sanctuary, but for young LGBTQ people who may not feel comfortable being out, may not be safe being out, home can very much turn into something of a prison.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being able to provide as a center, um, a welcoming and affirming space, for those who identify within the community, is essential to the work that we do.
And as you talk about the work that you do in your community,
Mhm.
I always bring it up because you're the development person. Who are the partners who have made, your expansions possible? Who are the people who we should be saying thank you to and recognizing, who are doing more than just, a social media post during Pride Month or whatever, but are actually helping to sustain the organization and the people who need the work?
Um, there are many, and I have to apologize in advance if I can't think of all of them from the top of my head. But of course, the city of Detroit comes to mind, and always does, for being so incredibly supportive. Um, Full Circle, they've been incredible. Landon, Bone Baker, like, they've been really incredible. O'Brien Construction, Bank of America. And, the center itself is going to have medical staff from Henry Ford Health System, who also currently, their pediatrics team in part, provides, free primary care services at the center now, in our health and wellness center. Um, that's just a few of the incredible organizations that are supporting this labor of love.
Well, that's always so incredible. It's always so good to hear about folks who are willing to do the work and the hard work, and recognizing it. And in your business, I imagine that that's been an interesting challenge, as people are now saying they want to be more involved with LGBTQ causes, but also
Mhm.
causes of people of color. And you all are a very intersectional space where it is not just, Black people, but,
Right.
significant number of Latino people, and kind of that broad spectrum of people of color, not just saying people of color to mean Black people. And so,
Mhm.
talk about the inclusion that people are able to get there. Can you just talk about how folks come in, where they get services for folks who are like, hey, I am having issues. I don't know where to go. What do they do?
I think the best way to access the center, I mean, we always appreciate a phone call. um, and, sharing a bit of narrative will always help, whoever picks up the phone, route them to the best space. But I think the best way to get connected really, email us info@ruthelliscenter.org, share a bit about yourself or the young person that you're trying to support. Um, it's pretty easy. We get emails all the time from young people or people who work with young people saying, I really think this young person could use some gender affirming care, which, simply means that they're looking for medical care in an environment where they won't be shamed for desiring something like hormones, for wanting, or needing reproductive health care that may not align with what the rest of the world is seeing, right? And so, yeah, emailing us is always great. You might also have a young person who's really sort of struggling with this newfound identity and or something they've always been familiar with themselves, but have never been comfortable sort of sharing outside of themselves or outside of the small number of people that may be familiar with who they truly are. And so you can reach out. Our referrals are open. So if you know someone, right, who's in need of behavioral health services or who could really sort of benefit from those kinds of interactions, BH as in behavior health, the letters B, the letter H, at RuthEllisCenter.org. Our behavioral health team will do an intake and be happy if it's appropriate to take on that young person and support them on their journey. But a phone call, even social media, actually, if you see our social media and, if something in your mind goes, like I could really use this kind of support, I'm responding to that kind of thing, as well as my counterpart, Alicia Khalil, on our Instagram. And we're more than happy to route the young person and or the caretaker or someone who cares about this young person to the necessary resources at the center, to get them started. And we also have a housing department as well. So, and case managers. So, for a young person who, there's a lot of, sort of legality, right, to receiving benefits. And there can be a lot of red tape if you're trying to access different resources. And so we actually have a department that can help you get your hands on those kinds of documentation that's necessary to sort of make those next steps. And if you are entitled to certain benefits, if you could be advancing in a certain area, but you're in need of official documentation and those kinds of things, we have staff to support that as well.
Excellent, excellent. So, all right, so we've kind of gone over one of the biggest projects we have going on, the history of the Ruth Ellis Center. If folks want to get engaged, they want to be helpful, how do they reach out and say, I want to give my time, my money, my resources? Like, how do people get engaged with Ruth Ellis to support the work that you all are doing?
The same exact way. You call us, you can have a conversation, you email us, we can have a meeting eventually via Zoom and in person if it's safe and people are able. But the same exact way, we engage our entire community on social media, via email and on the phone. And we're happy to route you to the incredible people who can support you with those aspirations, myself being one of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so can you just, before we move on, can you just kind of give people an understanding what the facilities look like over at Ruth Ellis? I know you all have, even though you have the Claremont space coming,
Yeah.
a number of recent moves and gotten a little bigger than you've been over the last couple of years.
We have. Thank you so much for acknowledging. Yes, we've been expanding pretty quickly. So for a while, our space was, 77 Victor Street, and that houses currently our behavioral health team, our health and wellness team, and the Ruth Ellis Institute. which is really sort of our training and evaluation arm. So they work a lot with the state and child welfare, ensuring that these are spaces where LGBTQ young people can feel affirmed and be affirmed. Our admin space is just across the street at 95 Victor over in Highland Park, that houses admin, development, finance, and our drop-in space, which is really sort of our low barrier access point. Not necessarily, too many questions asked if you're not comfortable. For many young people, it's sort of their entryway to the organization in hopes that, they eventually become comfortable to share themselves and then able to access the resources that we can support them with. So if you're into voguing, that's a great space. If you're
I mean, you all have a very big, wide open space.
We do, and it's at our admin space, if you can believe it. Yeah, our drop-in space moved from above 77 Victor, and now it's on the main and only floor of 95 Victor. It's an incredibly gorgeous space, well utilized by our young people. And in that same area, you can engage with those who work in tobacco cessation. If you're looking for a quick food box, just some nutritious things to get your week started. If you're in need of some additional support, that is the area that you would go to as a young person to access those services. And then we also have the Kofi House, which is our environment for queer women and girls. So if you're looking for an affirming space, and that is how you identify, the Kofi House, which is a little bit away from the center, but not too far away, is run by Kathy Griffin. She's incredible, and it's a beautiful space. And I'm always telling everyone about it because it's such a beautiful space to access. And we recently just re-upped and got some replacements for our laundry equipment. So for queer women and girls who are looking for, just to do some quick laundry, engage with some services, and hang out in a beautiful space, that is also available. Yeah.
So I always ask people, a couple of things before I let them escape. So what are you doing to maintain your physical health? With COVID and the pandemic, folks were kind of shut indoors, and you saw a number of folks start walking and moving around, and so you've seen this balance. What do you do to stay active?
So this is more aspirational than anything else. Yeah, but when I'm able, I really love walking. I'm originally from New Jersey. Before I moved to Michigan, I was living in Brooklyn with my husband, where he's from. And yeah, in the city, you can get a lot of walking done. A lot of walking. And I'm really trying my best to instill that in my 5-month-old, who's not yet quite walking, but very much wants to. You learn a lot about your community by walking. You see things that you might not see when you drive. It's one of the things that keeps me sane. It's one of the things that keeps me happy. I'm really blessed to live in a beautiful neighborhood full of some very kind people, and there are a lot of green spaces. And so I try my best to take it all possible.
You just got to get that stroller life in. I get my morning runs in because I run the kids to daycare. If I wasn't running them to daycare, I wouldn't run. So the days it's raining too hard and I don't get that in, I just don't run.
Yeah, and it's understood. It's hard. It can be really, really hard.
All right. So what about mental health? How are you taking care of you? And this piece is probably more salient now as it's become such a bigger issue, in sports, as people continue to attack Black women for
Yeah.
having mental health needs. And
Yeah.
there
And
are,
just being really transparent about them. And it's been heartbreaking, but I do appreciate those. There has been quite a lot of support too. So, and I'm really trying really hard to focus on that for them. In terms of mental health, I mean, you'd be surprised, like the walking really helps. It really, really sort of helps clear the mind. Michigan can be such a beautiful state, right? And the summer is really that time to sort of enjoy it, easily, right? And so walking is really helpful for that. Um, Reading, just sort of, sometimes you need a bit of an escape into a wonderful book of fiction. So
you
that's really helpful.
right
Um, hmm?
now? Are you reading anything good now?
I just recently cracked open Crazy Rich Asians.
Mm.
So I'm excited to get through that. And I only just saw the movie. So now I'm like even more inspired to like get through more of the book. Um, Talking with family. My husband and I are pretty far from home. Um, a nice chunk of our family has yet to meet the little person. And so talking to our families and our loved ones who are immediately around us, sort of in Michigan, as well as those back home, really helps us sort of center ourselves
Hmm.
and who we are outside of like this space. Yeah. So talking with family and other loved ones has really sort of kept up the mental health. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and to elevate the work that you all are doing over at Ruth Ellis. Just one last time, how do people get in touch with you? How do they reach out to Ruth Ellis? How do they be helpful?
Yeah. So I say the easiest way to get in touch with us is via our social media. So that's Facebook, that's Instagram, that's Twitter. All you got to do is mention Ruth Ellis Center. But if you're wanting to engage in services and if you're wanting to volunteer, it's always best to email us at info at ruthelliscenter.org.
Okay. And do you have any immediate needs that folks can be helpful with in the near term?
Um, we've got quite a few things that need building for our young people to be able to engage with one another and the staff safely. It should be known, however, that to volunteer in the space at different capacities, and especially if you're going to volunteer at an intimate level, we do have a volunteer orientation. We just want to make sure that people are in the best mind space possible to engage with our young people. And, that takes work. That
Mhm.
takes work to sort of, gain the trust and get your mind in a place where you are open and available and affirming for the young people that engage with our services. And then we always love clothing donations. It's still summer.
What kind of clothes do you need?
Summer clothing would be nice. Summer and, fall is not too far away. We have a couple of spaces we call Roots closets, which are essentially basically tiny boutiques. We have one over at 95 Victor. There's another one, I think is it 135 Hazelwood over at the Kofi House. And just affirming clothing for those who identify as queer women and girls, affirming clothing for those who identify as, male, female, and non-binary. Those kinds of things can be brought directly to 95 Victor or directly to Kofi House over at 135 Hazelwood. And yes, seasonally appropriate clothing would be very much appreciated.
What about dress clothes?
Always, because our young people are constantly getting different opportunities to either work in different spaces or intern, and dress clothes are always really great to have, and there's never enough of them. So very much we want for them to be able to have the things that they need to feel affirmed, that will allow them to elevate themselves. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I will go through my closet and find some things.
Please do.
And maybe we can plan to encourage other folks to do the same. We'll do something together.
Absolutely. That sounds awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Nazaria. This has been the We Can Do Better podcast with Nazaria from the Ruth Ellis Center. And it was just another opportunity for us to talk to people who are doing great and amazing things in the Second Senate District. And particularly this month, as we talk about all of the things going on in our community, and we see people who are affirming our own identities and building and developing in our community to take care of us. So have a great day.
Thank you. We can, in fact, do better.